Update. My brother proposed to my fiancé and I'm mad. Original post. My 28 male brother Mark, 26 male, used to date my fiancée Jen, 26 female, a year ago. For context, they dated back in August 2022. They were only together for a month before he broke things off with her because he was bored of being in a relationship and never really wanted to settle down anyway. At the time they were dating, I was in a different state, so I had no idea he even had a girlfriend. And I had no idea who Jen was until I met her. Jen and I met at a bar when I moved back in October and hit it off really well. She was easily the most beautiful and intelligent woman I ever met, and we met up a few times more before we made it official. Fast forward to December and I finally bring her up to my family and proposed them meeting her at Christmas. They knew I was in a relationship, but I'm not the most open about my personal life, so I kept details about her to minimum until I knew how serious we really were. My parents asked to see pictures, and they started passing my phone around the dinner table. Mark saw it and blew up, calling me a horrible brother for dating his ex-girlfriend, and he demanded I break it off with her. I refused. When I asked Jen about it, she confirmed they dated and gave me the details about their breakup. It took a few weeks, but eventually Mark stopped bringing up me dating his ex, and I thought he was over it. On Jen's birthday this year, I took her out to a fancy dinner with both our families and her closest friends, and I asked her to marry me. Mark flipped once again and blew up about me proposing to her, which I and my sisters immediately shut down. The incident happened this past weekend. Mark had been pretty quiet about the whole thing for the last 2 months. I didn't see him much and figured he went low contact with me, which I had no problem with. Then he invited me and Jen for a family dinner at his apartment with my parents and sisters. I thought it was weird, but my parents and sisters were also going, so we agreed to go. The dinner was nice, nothing too fancy, and we moved to the living room to talk. About 30 minutes into normal conversation, Mark stood up and told us he had an announcement. He made a long speech about being happy to have his family around his big moment, then got on one knee and pulled out this cheap ring while asking Jen to marry him. Jen was confused and obviously uncomfortable and demanded that he put it away and stand up. My dad tried to make a grab for Mark, but I got to him first and hit him. I won't repeat most of it, mostly because I was too angry to even listen most of it, but he said something along the lines of wanting to show me that Jen wasn't really into me and just wanted to get back at him. Before it could get worse, my parents rushed me out and promised to talk to him. It's been a few days since it happened, and I'm still mad about it. I don't know what to do at this point. I'm scared Jen might have second thoughts marrying me because of this. Any advice? Now for the top advice before reading the update. I think it's clear that your brother doesn't even like nor want Jen. He doesn't even see her as a human. He sees her as an object, a toy that he didn't want. But seeing someone else with it makes him go, "No, mine," like a freaking child. So he's acting out and trying to drive a wedge between y'all in order to get his way. If he liked her, he would care about how she feels. If he liked her, he'd want her to be happy. He doesn't like her. So forget the tantrum is trying to pull and block him. No need to entertain that nonsense. Absolutely this. How much do you want to bet the brother is also the sort of guy to get mad when somebody else gets a promotion at work while he himself is doing below bare minimum at all times? Wow, he's that ex. It sounds like your brother needs more time away from Jen before he can be a normal acquaintance or future brother-in-law. You and Jen should go low contact for at least 6 months to a year to ensure he moves on properly. I think he's moved on. They dated a month, and he broke up with her. He doesn't see her as a person, but he puts down the toy he doesn't want, and now someone else is touching it, so he is having a tantrum. Lock your brother out of your life for good. That's the only way you and your fiancé will be able to live peacefully. Don't listen to his family BS if anyone tries to give it to you. Thankfully, I haven't heard the his family nonsense much, aside from my mom and a few aunts. They know me well enough to know our relationship isn't enough for me to put up with his disrespect, especially towards my fiancé. They'd be wasting their breath. The brother sounds like a petulant child. If your girlfriend ends up going back to that over you, which going by what you've said I'd say is highly unlikely, then you'd have dodged a massive bullet. Yeah, I don't think I have to worry about her going back. Safe to say she can't stand him either, lol. Edit. First, thanks for reading and responding. I've been reading the comments between last night and this morning and valid points were made. There isn't an update since the only people I've spoken to since that dinner is Jen and my little sister. I want to clarify a few things that I saw in the comments. 1. Jen and I are newly engaged. It was one of those feelings where we both knew we were in it for the long run. As fast as it is, I'm sure about her. 2. When we met, I was the one who approached her, not the other way around. Whether she knew or had suspicions of us being related, I don't know. I asked after finding out they dated, and she says she had no idea. I didn't have a reason to doubt that, but I can admit this seemingly overreaction on Mark's part does raise red flags. 3. I had no idea she and Mark dated when I met her. Mark and I aren't close at all. We used to be, but as we grew up, we drifted and talked less and less. Before I moved back, we didn't really speak much, aside from special days like his or my birthday. Jen knew of my family but not much until I decided I was ready to introduce them to her. When she and Mark met again, I didn't get a sense of any residual feelings on either part. She didn't treat him like a stranger, but she also wasn't overly affectionate with him either. 4. I was told this was a relationship that lasted a month. I didn't think I needed permission from Mark to ask her to marry me, but maybe that was wrong of me. I'm not sure. That being said, I plan to talk to Mark this weekend to lay everything out on the table and figure out what's up. I never asked for a side of their relationship, which is my fault for not doing my due diligence. If anything major or enlightening happens, I'll update. But for now, that's all I have. Now for the full update. First, I want to thank everyone for reading. It's been a busy weekend, so I haven't had a chance to reply to many people, but I did edit in responses to the most common questions I saw in the comments of the original post. Again, thank you. I appreciate it all, even the criticisms. Now for the update. I called Mark and asked him to meet up with me at my place to talk. I told him I would prefer Jen to be around for the talk as well, but I was cool with it if he didn't want her there. He agreed to talk to both of us and showed up at my place around noon today. It was pretty quiet for a few minutes before I started a conversation. I apologized for not warning him I would be proposing to Jen, and I apologized for hitting him. He said it was whatever, but he appreciated the apology. I told him what Jen had said about the relationship and breakup when I asked her about it, and I asked him to confirm if it was true. I pretty much said that his reaction throughout the whole thing has been extreme, and I wanted to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding their relationship or downplaying how serious they were. He confirmed that they only dated for a few weeks, and he broke up with her because he lost interest. Jen asked if he was acting like this because he still had feelings or regrets about ending things with her. He said he could admit he thought she was more attractive than when he last saw her, but there weren't any feelings or regrets. He said he just didn't like seeing a girl he dated, even if it was short-term, with his older brother, and as a man shouldn't have violated him by pursuing things with his ex. I reminded him that I had no idea they dated, so it wasn't like I consciously did this knowing their history together. He shrugged me off and said it didn't matter. I still should have broken it off. He was adamant that if the roles were reversed, he would have done the same thing, which I doubt. I asked him why he proposed to her if he didn't have any lingering feelings. Basically, to sum it up, he was talking about it to one of his buddies who was around when Mark and Jen dated, and the guy put the idea in his head that maybe Jen knew from the start that we were related and was doing this to get back at him, considering Jen had been hung up on him after they ended. He and his friend thought it would be a good idea to test it and see if they were right. So he came up with the idea to propose and see if she dumped me for him. Jen asked him to elaborate on why he thought she was hung up on him, and he told her that he heard she was asking about him following the breakup and still hanging out at places they used to go to, so it was a valid assumption. Then for her to pop up randomly with his brother affirmed his suspicions. Jen told him she'd only ask about him once following the breakup, and she'd been hanging out at those places with friends before they started dating, and she wouldn't avoid them because of a breakup. She also told him she was offended at the idea that she would go as low as to pursue me, just to get back at him. He shrugged and gave her a half-baked apology, but said she had to see it from his point of view. He asked her if she really didn't know, and she told him that she didn't see the resemblance in us until we were in the same room, and we act nothing alike, so it never crossed her mind, and he said okay. That pretty much wrapped up the conversation. He did tell me before he left that I could take back his invite to the wedding, because he can't bring himself to support our relationship knowing he used to date her. I told him he didn't have to worry about that, as he was most likely going to be uninvited anyway. It's been a few hours since our talk, and I do feel better. My parents aren't too happy about him being uninvited, but they understood that it was a mutual decision and probably for the best. My sisters told me they knew he didn't have a good reason for being an a-hole, and they don't blame me for not wanting him at the wedding. As of now, I'm going to limit contact with Mark, and I doubt he'll reach out to me anytime soon either. Once again, I want to thank everyone for reading and commenting, and if anything significant happens, I'll update again. I can't get over the fact that he only dated her for a few weeks, doesn't tell you at all, and then still expects you to break up with someone that he apparently was not interested in at all. He has some horrible friends. And the fact that he doubled down tells me he's looking at your wife more as a property or used goods rather than a human being. Not to mention the disrespect on a personal level to assume that you're not deserving of happiness if he's already been with that person. He has a really crappy mindset. That's likely going to paint a very bad picture in the future of him. I imagine the brothers' buddies all killing themselves laughing that they got him to do the proposal. I refuse to believe this is real because I do not want to live in a world where an adult can be so stupid to think that plan would work. Even if Jen was this conniving person, a public proposal as your attempt to edge her back in is literally insane. I've had former friends who thought they were such hot stuff that they actually did pull something like what Opie's brother did, only to have a severe reality check later. This story may sound unbelievable, but the stupidity is sadly real. What happened? They thought they could seduce their respective exes back to them, and were even convinced to take it further by proposing from other friends I also no longer associate with. You can imagine how that turned out. Hindsight, weirdest friend group I fell into. I had a tormented relationship for 5 years with someone who had asked me to marry him, then didn't want me to tell anyone for over a year, by which time he was saying it was a mistake. That was the trigger for our final breakup, and I was lucky enough to connect with an old crush soon after. Despite knowing that, Mr. Ambivalent decided I was the love of his life after all, and that he'd better get down on one knee in a park and propose. Screw you, guy, and your crappy cheap ring, and year of whiny emails. My ex-husband proposes to his partner every now and again, just to tell her that it was only a joke, the next day. Our children have been present when this nonsense went down. I would have kicked his butt a long time ago, but they have a severely autistic son, and he has the money to provide to his needs and specialty facilities, etc. I think she stays for this reason. Last story. Am I 48 female crazy for letting it bother me that my partner, 49 male, agreed with his ex about me? I've always been independent. I was single and on my own 100% for 10 years with my child until I met my current partner. Bought my own place, owned 2 cars just like majority of people do. This guy is truly amazing and I have never been happier. We have been together 4 years. His ex-wife, I noticed in the beginning of our relationship, was always calling and yelling about needing more money for this, more money for that. Always about money. Their children are grown and he already makes huge payments, but it was just not enough. Anyhow, not my business, so not my place to say anything. Not something I even cared to know about. We have never met or interacted and never had any reason to. So in December, she texted him talking about what a mooch their son's girlfriend is, and her mother as well. He was playing the texts in text-to-voice while sitting next to me, so no, I wasn't snooping. She said a girlfriend needs to sign a prenup before getting serious with her son. The son doesn't own anything or even work, so unsure how his girlfriend is mooching from him. She was just sounding extra spicy and miserable. Then says, speaking of which, you need to get whoever that is that you're with to sign one too. We have worked hard over half our lives to just have her take everything from us. I was stunned. But when he replied to her, Roger that, I was incredibly hurt that he didn't defend me. He instead sounded like he agreed with her. I asked if he really thought I was going to do something like that to him, and he said no. When I mentioned that really hurt when he agreed, he just said let it go, and it's nothing to be upset over. We had never even talked about moving in together. I definitely like having my own place, but now after that, I will never ever move in with him in the future. Not a chance. One time, he mentioned a problem about the huge payments he makes to her, and I was snarky and said something about her being so concerned about me signing a prenup so I don't take what's hers, and he got angry. The one and only time I have seen him angry at me. Part of me wants to bail because she obviously still has so much control over his life when they have been split for years. Am I crazy for letting this bother me like it thinks I am? Now for the top comments. I definitely like having my own place, but now after that, I will never ever move in with him in the future. Smart call. Really a smart call. So, he didn't get angry with the ex when she went off on you and didn't shut her down, but he got mad at you when you pointed this out? Me thinks your partner is a little confused about who exactly his partner is. Thank you. Someone who understands what I'm saying here, lol. Just flip it back on them both and say, I don't think it's a good idea to move in together and intermingle our finances. I worked way too hard all these years to have you and your ex bleed me dry with these ridiculous adult-aged child support payments. Now you know that she will always have a say or control a certain aspect of him and his money. Just the fact that he let her demand more money and not put his foot down and go with what the court says is saying something. I get when the kids are younger, but as you said, they're grown. Yes, and the fact that I am not allowed to tell him it upset me without being made to feel stupid makes me wonder if this is worth it as well. That is the point where you should take some time and decide if he is really someone you want to be around when you can't even talk about something that upsets you. I agree.